Hello everyone, I love you and I hope you're all having a wonderful week. Today I'd like to talk about doubt. And doubt can be defined as distrusting, questioning, or being uncertain about things that we believe in. And doubt is something that affects all of our lives, especially when it comes to our faith. Sometimes we may doubt God's goodness or His power and His ability. Other times we may even doubt God's existence. And then other times we may doubt our own salvation and question whether we are truly saved or not. Doubt is something that we will all struggle with at some point in our lives. So we need to know how to deal with our doubt and how to destroy our doubt. And we can learn how to do that by studying Thomas and his doubt about the resurrection, which is found in John chapter 20, verses 24 through 31. And to give a little bit of context, Jesus has been crucified, He died and was buried, and He rose from the dead. He had resurrected and appeared to the disciples. But the only problem was Thomas was not present that first time. He was not there. And so he doubted the resurrection. And so let's read about doubting Thomas in John chapter 20, verses 24 through 31. But Thomas, called Twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples were telling him, "We've seen the Lord." But he said to them, "If I don't see the mark of the nails in his hand, and put my finger in the mark of the nails, and put my hand into his side, I will never believe." A week later, his disciples were indoors again, and Thomas was with them. Even though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and look at my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Don't be faithless, but believe." Thomas responded to him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe." Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples that are not written in this book, but these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. So let's look at how we can destroy doubt by studying Thomas's example. And the first point is this: destroy doubt by admitting and embracing your doubts. Destroy doubt by admitting and embracing your doubts. See, usually when we start to feel doubtful, our first response is to hide it and to ignore it, suppress it, and act like it's not there. And the reason we do that is when we feel doubts, when we have doubts, we're ashamed and we feel guilty. And we're afraid that God may be angry or disappointed with us because of our doubts and because of our weak faith. And oftentimes when we doubt, we feel like we're bad Christians because we think that good Christians are never supposed to doubt. But see, when we ignore our doubts, the problem is the more we ignore them, the bigger our doubts become until eventually we start to believe our doubts. And so in order to destroy doubt, we must first admit our doubts and address our doubts, and then seek to disprove them by finding answers. And see, that's what Thomas did. Thomas never hid his doubt. He was very open about it. He told him, "If I don't see proof, I'm not going to believe." He was very open. And see, we have to too. In order to destroy our doubts, we have to first be willing to admit that we do have doubts. Second, we see that we destroy doubt by having faith bigger than our emotions. Faith bigger than our emotions. And see, a lot of times, a lot of us are guilty of allowing our emotions and our feelings to dictate our faith. When everything is going well, when we're emotionally happy and content, it's easy for us to have faith. But as soon as something bad happens and we start to struggle or have trials, that's when the doubts start to creep in. It's when we're in emotional turmoil, when we have experienced a loss, like a loss of a loved one, or maybe we've lost our job. Or maybe we've got a bad health report and have to face an illness. It's when we're emotionally depressed and down, when things are not going well, when we're struggling. That's when doubts start to creep in. And we may begin to doubt God's goodness as we question why He allows bad things to happen. And see, that's where Thomas was. Thomas was very depressed. He was down because he had lost Jesus. He loved Jesus, and Jesus had died. So he was very emotionally distraught and he was isolated, and that contributed to his doubt. But see, we know that our emotions fluctuate. They change all the time. So we cannot base our faith on just emotions and our feelings. Our faith has to be greater than our feelings. And so we must base our faith on the truth of God's Word, on the promises of God, so that we can always have faith regardless of our circumstances. Third, we see that we destroy doubt by remembering nothing is impossible with God. We destroy doubt by remembering nothing is impossible with God. There are a lot of things about the Christian faith that seem impossible. Moses in the burning bush, Jonah in the well, Jesus being born of a Virgin Mary, and then finally the resurrection of Jesus, Jesus raising from the dead after he had died and suffered an agonizing death. There are a lot of things about the Christian faith that seem impossible to us. And so we tend to doubt God when God's actions and what he does, when it seems impossible or unbelievable by our human logic, we tend to doubt God's ability and his power. And that's what Thomas did. Thomas doubted the resurrection because to him, to his human knowledge, it seemed impossible. So it was hard for him to believe it. And a lot of times when God's actions seem impossible to our human logic, we tend to have logical and intellectual doubts about God. But when we start to feel those doubts, we need to remember that nothing is impossible or too hard for God. And Matthew chapter 19 verse 26 tells us, with man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. So when we doubt, remember that nothing is impossible because all things are possible for God. Fourth, we see that we can destroy doubt by trusting God when we do not understand. Trust God when you do not understand. It's easy for us to doubt things that we don't understand. It's easy. And so a lot of times we doubt God, we doubt his purpose and his plan for us when we don't understand what he is doing, or when God does something that is different than what we want or expect. And see, as Christians, as humans, we want to understand everything. We want all the answers. But we have to understand and accept that there will always be mysteries to faith, because God's ways and thoughts are much higher than ours. Because we are humans, we have a limited knowledge and limited perspective. And so a lot of times we doubt because of our limited perspective. But we have to remember to trust God. Because as Isaiah chapter 55 verse 9 says, God's ways are higher than your ways, and his thoughts are higher than your thoughts. So we have to remember when we don't understand something, we need to trust God. And see, Thomas didn't understand the resurrection. Because like the other disciples, he was expecting an earthly kingdom. He was expecting Jesus to be a military leader or a political leader. But when he died, all that the disciples had expected went away. And so Thomas doubted because he didn't understand the true kingdom of God and what Jesus' true mission was. He didn't understand, so he doubted. And so when we doubt, when we don't understand what's going on, what God is doing, we need to always remember to trust God with what we don't understand. Fifth, we see that we destroy doubt by seeking a personal encounter with Jesus. Destroy doubt by seeking a personal encounter with Jesus. Often when we feel doubt, our first response is to run from Jesus or to hide from him and to avoid him, because we feel like that Jesus will be angered or disappointed with us because of our doubt. We're afraid that he will get mad at us. But that's not the case, because we see that Jesus was not mad with Thomas. Jesus was patient with Thomas, and he was willing to redeem Thomas instead of condemning him. And he revealed himself to Thomas to help him to have faith and not doubt. So Jesus was very loving and patient with Thomas. And so whenever we feel doubt, we need to bring those doubts to Jesus. We need to seek Jesus and seek to get closer to Jesus. And we do that through prayer. We bring our doubts and express our doubts to Jesus through prayer. And by doing that, Jesus helps lessen our doubts and increase our faith. Because the closer we are to Jesus, the more he will reveal himself to us. So we need to destroy doubt by seeking a personal encounter with Jesus. Sixth, we see that we can destroy doubt by examining the evidence. As humans, we like to have evidence before we believe. We have a hard time believing in something unless we have tangible proof. We're very see it to believe it people. And so a lot of times we have to have evidence to support our belief before we're willing to truly believe. And we see that Thomas was given tangible proof. Jesus showed him his wounds and gave him the opportunity to touch those wounds. So Jesus provided him with tangible evidence, and Thomas was able to examine that evidence. But see, we don't have that luxury today. We can't see or feel Jesus' wounds, but yet we can still experience him. We can still examine the evidence. And we see the evidence of Jesus. We can see evidence of his existence in the scriptures and in nature, the beauty of nature. And then also we can see the evidence of Jesus in the love of other people. God is everywhere if we'll just take the time to look and examine the evidence. Seventh, we see that we can destroy doubt by believing by faith instead of sight. Believe by faith instead of sight. And see, a lot of times we believe something based purely on sight. We have to see it to believe it. But see, if we like that, if we only rely on sight, we're going to always struggle to believe in God, and we're going to doubt God because we can't always see or feel him moving in our life. God is an invisible God. And so we have to rely on faith, because faith is the substance of what is unseen. Faith allows us to believe in God without sight, because we believe that even though we cannot see today, one day we will be able to see what is now unseen. And it is through faith. Our faith is based on God's promises. And it's through faith that we can know and love God without seeing him. See, Thomas believed because he saw Jesus. But Jesus tells us that blessed are those who have not seen and yet believe. So when we believe in Jesus without seeing him through faith, it's through faith that we believe in Jesus. Jesus tells us that we are blessed when we believe through faith instead of relying on sight. And 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 7 says, "For we walk by faith and not by sight." That's how we destroy our doubt. We walk by faith and not by sight. And then finally we see that we destroy doubt by using our doubts to fuel our faith. Use our doubts to fuel our faith. See, we oftentimes think of doubt as something that is purely negative and something to be avoided. But doubt can be beneficial when it's dealt with appropriately. And see, doubt can be beneficial to us because it tests our faith. And it strengthens and increases our faith by bringing us closer to God. Doubt drives us into action as we search and seek for the truth and for answers to our questions. And when we find answers to our questions, it builds our faith, and it removes all uncertainty and strengthens and solidifies our convictions, which strengthens our faith. So that's how doubt can strengthen our faith. We see that Thomas was doubtful at the beginning of this passage, but after he sees and experiences Jesus, he says, "My Lord and my God." Thomas's faith was so strong that historians tell us that he died in India while spreading the gospel. Thomas believed in Jesus so much that he was willing to sacrifice his life for him. That's how strong his faith was. And so we can destroy our doubt by using those same doubts to fuel our faith. I know that all of us struggle with doubt at some point in our life. And if you find yourself doubting today, I pray that you bring that doubt to Jesus and allow him to help you deal with your doubt and destroy your doubt. I pray that this message blessed you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me. Make sure you tune in next week. I'm sure Tracy's got another great message for us. Thank you again for listening to me. I hope you have a great week, and God bless you.